Hello, people of the internet! I am Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir, and welcome to another anime review. But not just any anime review. For this special occasion, I decided to bring along the SOS crew of Bill Worster, aka Zazubar.
Oh my god, I did not expect to be introduced first. I'm not ready. I haven't put my pants on yet. Hey, everyone. Hi-ho, Junior Rangers.
David Joshua Hernandez, aka Gorizard.
Wait, this is a review for Andres?
And finally, last but certainly not least, it is Dylan McCandless, aka Super DM64.
I'd like to establish that I both have my pants on and I know what channel I'm on.
Thank you very much. So, for this special occasion, because
aren't you fucking special?
We are going to cover the 2019 Ultraman anime that premiered on Netflix on April 1st, 2019. That ran for 13 episodes, each one being roughly about half an hour, and it is based off of the Ultraman manga, or Ultra manga, as some of us likes to call it, that first started in 2011. And since Bill, Dylan, and I have covered the first two volumes of the Ultraman manga on this channel, I decided what better way to get back into doing, our good old SOS style reviews / podcasts like we used to months ago than with the Ultraman anime that's connected to the manga we all know and love. And yeah, I'm very excited to just bring everyone together for this little reunion of ours and just talk about Ultraman, because we all like Ultraman, right? I'm assuming? Yeah? Maybe? Kind of, sort of.
He's a real
ultra.
dick.
He's ultra cool. I'm not gonna stop that. I'm just gonna keep sneaking it in there until.
See, when you're searching for a hero who knows the right stuff, and when super's not enough, you can only count on Ultraman.
Is that how it goes?
That
kind of,
were you
sort
putting
of.
something just then?
I was doing a little reference to the Ultraman Tiga American theme song.
Oh, I was wondering if that was a real song or anything.
I've been looking for an opportunity this whole time to say the word 7, but with a B instead of a V, and it hasn't come up yet.
It'll come up soon enough, I'm sure. So anyways, this was based off, this anime series has been in production for a while, and we have kind of been, not highly anticipating, but we've been kind of curious about how it was going to come out, especially in the wake of both the Gridman anime and the Godzilla anime. And yeah, it has come out, and there's been quite a lot of different reactions to it from different people, Ultraman fans and non-fans alike. And so before going into the actual series itself, I want to know your guys' brief thoughts on the Ultraman manga before going into this. So for me personally, I've only read up to the third volume of the manga, and yeah, of course, I reviewed the first two with you guys. And the third one, it was pretty much more the same. I personally loved the direction that the manga took. It was like a new direction for the series, but I felt like it actually worked overall and still stayed true to the spirit of Ultraman. Your guys' thoughts?
Well, same as you. I also have read the first 3 volumes. I own the 4th volume, but I haven't ever read it. And yeah, I mean, I understand why some Ultra fans might get their panties in a twist over certain aspects of the new direction that you mentioned. I get it, but it doesn't really bother me. They do a lot of interesting things with the previously established lore, I feel, integrating it in interesting ways. And I'm like 90% sure that at some point he's going to grow giant. So everybody just keep your pants on.
Stop calling me out, all right? It was one fucking time. They're on now. Relax, all right?
That's Bill's pet name for his dick, Ultraman.
Yeah, definitely. Even before I knew who he was, even when I thought he was a robot.
Oh yeah, that was a thing.
That was a thing.
And I guess your thoughts, Bill?
All right, well, I mean, we talked about this when we reviewed those first 2 volumes. I wasn't into Ultraman when I was a kid. It's something I only became familiar with in my late teens, and then I've only actually seen full episodes of in the last couple of years. And this was the first version that I ever really got into in any kind of depth, actually reading The first 3 volumes, we're all caught up exactly on the same, up to the same point in the manga then. Because I thought I had read the 4th one, but then I actually found my copies of it earlier, and I was like, okay, so I only ever read up to 3, because 3 ends with the bit where they're in like the alien town, and you see the not Red King,
right? Who for some strange reason gets replaced with Black King in the series, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Maybe one of you guys could explain to me, first of all, who that is, and second of all, why they did that.
I got a theory.
But it's interesting. It's interesting because I was always interested in Ultraman because it looked so much like Godzilla, especially having always seen that clip of Godzilla, the 65 Godzilla suit being used to fight Ultraman in one of the episodes. That was Jiros, of course, as I know now.
Right.
So slowly over the years, I've gotten into it, and now I'm at a place where I'm like, yeah, no, I like Ultraman quite a bit.
That's the real question. When are we going to get a version of Jiros in the Ultraman manga/anime?
I was waiting for that this whole season because we've only read up to 3, so I was like, maybe it's in like 4.
He's got to be easily the most infamous Ultraman monster, right? Just because of like the history surrounding it.
Do you think they were afraid to do it because Godzilla is like we're at a time where there's a 1,000 versions of Godzilla again, so it's like. It's too on the nose, and they're different companies, so it's just like
it's very easy to tweak that design to make it not look like that, especially in this show where everyone is just a mech suit anyway, or a freaky alien. They could easily just phenotype. Right, they could easily just give him a more generic reptilian head, and then it wouldn't matter.
Although funny enough, I think Matt Frank actually brought Jiras back into the Redman comic book series.
Did he appear in that series? Oh, didn't a bunch of Ultraman monsters come back in that?
Yeah, and he even did like a little spotlight portrait of Jiras for the official Redman manga, which I just shared the link with you guys.
But I thought the Black King was the name of the creature that was actually in the anime, right?
Right.
Yeah. The big guy.
Funny enough, I just found a depiction of a Black King by Matt Frank again for the Redman manga or comic book.
Oh, cool. I thought that that was pretty close to like a Godzilla type creature appearing in that scale, especially when you looked at the feet. I was like, okay, that's pretty much just Godzilla's feet. So, I mean, I wanted more of that because there was another creature later on in the series that looked almost identical except with slightly different shoulder pads. I wanted something a little bit different, something more like Jiros where it was like bright green and more reptilian, but I still liked that inclusion.
Right. That was one of the super beasts called Verocron.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They
found
I love how Matt Frank was able to really just retain the Godzilla fucking nature of the face, though. Is Redman put out by Toho, the manga?
Definitely not Toho. It was, what was it?
The current manga. I mean, who's putting it out? You'd think that Toho would I guess not, because he's worked on Godzilla, so they'd leave him alone pretty much.
I believe the company that's doing Redman the Kaiju Hunter is the same company that's re-releasing all the Dark Horse comics, as well as doing the Japanese versions of the Godzilla, Rulers of Earth.
Oh, so they're probably in bed with Toho anyway.
And
Was the original Redman in the same universe as Ultraman, or has
it was just a cheapo TV show that Tsuburaya made on as like a little side project for television with what was it, like 3 to 5 minute episodes?
Is he supposed to be the same species? He looks strikingly similar.
I think it was just like one of those like side projects that Tsuburaya made, like Mirror Man, Fireman, Jumbo Gaze, where like they just made a lot of like Ultraman-like characters to.
They just did Ultraman again.
Yeah. So like Redman was
slightly different pieces.
Right. Redman was just like cheap budget Ultraman.
Because he didn't grow, right? He was just a guy.
Right. He was just a dude.
Right. It's ironic because before they settled on Ultraman, one of the potential names for the character was Redman.
Oh yeah, and before that was Bemular, which turned out to be the name of the first villain of the Ultraman series.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I have some theories about Bemular in the anime.
Yeah, that is interesting. We'll talk about that because yeah.
Right.
It's so weird hearing the name Bemular because I'm so used to the English dub being referred to as Bemler.
Oh, okay. For me, it's like
it sounds like an 80s. It sounds like Gremlins or something.
I actually had like a similar reaction to you, David, where it's like it was kind of weird hearing English voices refer to these characters in English, like hearing Ultraman. I'm still getting used to people saying Kaiju and Choju. Hearing like stuff like the Science Patrol, it's like it's so uncanny because you're always used to hearing characters in Japanese pronouncing these words.
Yeah, I hear it all the time though when people are talking about like the upcoming Godzilla movie. The word Kaiju has become pretty mainstream, and I think we have Del Toro to thank for that.
Yeah,
that's kind of annoying nowadays, especially because the anime does this as well. It refers to the monsters as kaiju, and I'm like,
but
the
right, but the subtitles doesn't. It just says these are monsters. Like the word, like the English dub refers to kaiju as if that's supposed to be a more specific special term for these characters, but it's not.
Yeah.
It just in the context of the Japanese dub, it's just the generic word for monster. It's not.
I felt like I didn't hear the word kaiju very often at all. It was mostly just, there's an alien. We gotta go kill this alien.
Yeah, they
get off your ass, Shinjiro, and go stab that alien. A whole lot of Dan Moriboshi censuring him for not killing aliens.
Right.
I actually didn't watch the dub for this. I actually actively turned the subbed original version on.
For me,
I did not like what I was hearing in those first two. I couldn't keep going. I was like, I think I'll enjoy this more with the sub, and I did.
Okay.
Wow.
I was switching back.
How did it feel to go full weeb? No, I'm kidding.
No, it was. Did you guys feel like the dialogue was really slow?
It has that thing that a lot of anime have when you dub them into English. Like, I've talked about this all the time, where like anime exposition is always the weirdest thing in the world to me, because I've picked out this pattern recently where character A will say X, and then character B will say, "Are you telling me X?" And then character A says, "Yes, X." And then, like, they over-explain like simple things that I totally understood the first time, but then they get to like something super complicated and they speed right through it, and I'm like, wait, no, explain that more.
Getting to read it though was just so much better. And you know, if you turn on the English subtitles with the dub on, it's the Japanese subtitles. It's not the, you know, they don't subtitle the dub. So that's also why I did it as well. I didn't just do it to be a weeb. But I was happy I did. I really preferred the Japanese cast to what I had heard in those first, especially Hayata. I did not like the English voice actor for Hayata. I doubt that they got the original Japanese actor who played Hayata for the Japanese version, but whoever did that was just better. I didn't like the English version for him.
What was it?
So you didn't have that weird issue where it was like super strange that like the girl speaks English throughout the entire season, except for when she's singing in that concert, and then she's suddenly the most Japanese person on the planet. I did after episode 2. Because after episode 2, I was like, I'm not enjoying this as much as I feel like I could if I knew everything was going on. So that's why I turned on the subtitles. So no, I never really got into the dub versions of the characters. By the time I was done with the show, all the subtitled and Japanese versions were in my head. That's how everybody sounded.
The only time
I never even got to like Dan's dub actor or Ito. I never even got to Ito.
Dan's dub actor is good, and it's somebody I've heard before in like a million different things, and I have no idea who the fuck it is. But I know that I'm familiar with that voice.
That creepy alien that turns out to be a good guy.
Oh, Adad?
Spoilers. Well, this is a spoiler review.
Well, he turns out to be a spy. I don't know if I would say that he's necessarily a good guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, he does kill people, but he's not. You know, he genuinely has feelings for that girl, and he helps her in the end. So
what was it? the only voice actor that really bothered me, like, for me, I was switching back and forth between the two dubs just so I can get a feel for how each character sounds in both languages. And the only one I found very problematic was Rena Sayama's father, who was like the detective, where he sounded like a young voice actor trying to pull off an older voice. Whereas with the Japanese voice actor, he sounded much more natural, like he was genuinely an older dude.
Hey, that sounds like Bill's career.
Okay,
how, David.
I never got to that guy though, so I can't compare it to mine. I never got to that guy's dubbed voice anyway.
And let's see. The rest of the dubs, it doesn't. The only part that bothered me was how I feel like it's would be easier to dub an anime, traditional anime, because most of the time they don't have very detailed mouth movements, where it's just like open and closed mouth flaps. Whereas with the CG anime, the mouth flaps are they're more like animated. They're animated in a more complicated sort of fashion. And so when you're looking at the dub, you're paying attention to the voices and the sounds. And for whatever reason, like, of course, like, because the mouth movements are much more complex, the dubbing does not like fully match the mouth movements of the CG animation. I'm not sure if you noticed that as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's why they slowed down. I don't know. I don't think they slowed down the dialogue, but there's definitely there's definitely a very deliberate pace to how the dubbed actors spoke, and I just couldn't take it as seriously as I would have if it was just the original way the dialogue was intended. And it just felt so exaggerated. Maybe that's why it felt so exaggerated to me outside of Dragon Ball Z and all these other traditional animes I've seen dubbed, because they were really slowing down their words so that way they could match up with the more exaggerated lip movements. I guess they also get like super close up and on people's face. I mean, they do that in traditional 2D animation as well with anime. That's just an anime thing to get super close up and on the face, and like all you see is the mouth moving is the only thing that's animated.
Right. I do apologize to ladies and gentlemen for the sound you're hearing in the background. For whatever reason, there's some renovations going on in the apartment right next to me.
Yeah, I noticed one bout of just like bam hammering, and I was like, who the fuck did that? Who's that? It had to be David. That was my assumption.
I thought it was a sewing machine. I was like, wait, for some reason I thought
sounded
Dylan
a little bit like that too. Yeah, because Dylan just is known as to be a seamstress. You're so right.
Secretly,
of course, it was secretly Bolton the whole time. So, we never got to David. So David, what
story of life.
Are your thoughts on the Ultraman manga, or if you haven't read it, what were your thoughts initially when it first came out?
I've only read the first volume.
Okay.
And after that, I was like, I'm just going to wait until more volumes come out. And what do you know? They announced the anime. And so I'm all like, okay, so I don't have to read the manga anymore. But
thank God.
I like the idea that they're going with. As a matter of fact, I'm a huge supporter of it. And I'm a huge fan of Ultraman 66. I feel like the Ultraman franchise needed something like this, whatever medium it was. Because not counting the most recent Ultra shows of the last 10 years, which have become practically toy commercials and too wacky.
Okay, you're referring to the stuff like Ultraman Ginga, X, Orb, Jeed, and Rebu.
To an extent, yeah, but I was mainly thinking about Ultra Galaxy, where it's just
that's like 10 years ago now.
Recent Ultraman stuff, recent Godzilla movies like Godzilla vs. Biollante and Godzilla Raids Again.
Well, I'm talking about the things that came out since then. And Ultra Galaxy, I think, was the starting point for that.
I would argue that Ginga was the start of that. It's like once you entered the 2010s, Kamen Rider, Sentai, and Ultraman all started going into this more toyetic approach to take a page out of Joel Schumacher.
Right. And I don't know, the franchise is just...
Everyone's got to have a collectible gimmick to power up the main hero.
Right. The franchise... well, the Ultraman franchise specifically, it was kind of going downhill, and I felt like the manga, the idea of the manga or manga, however you pronounce it, it's Mango.
Sure, let's go with that. Let's piss off everybody.
Yeah, let's call it Mango.
The Ultramango.
Yes.
But yeah, I support the direction of the manga and the anime because I feel like the Ultraman franchise needs something like this, something to breathe new life into it. And whatever they're doing with the manga right now, and I'm sure the anime is going to follow up, they're doing it successfully.
Right. They're currently at about, I want to say 12 volumes. Yeah, they're about, I believe they're at 12 volumes, the last I heard of it. And I know in the last couple of years, the writer and artist of the Ultraman manga, Eiichi Shimizu and Tomohiro Shimoguchi, both of them went on to do a Getter Robo manga called Getter Robo Devolution. And so it's possible maybe they took a break from the Ultraman to work on that new Getter Robo manga and then maybe come back to it. As far as I know, I tried looking at, trying to see if the manga was finished or not. And as far as I know, it looks like it's technically still going. So it's possible that they took a break at some point.
It's probably why they did the anime, so they can fill in the gap.
Probably, yeah, to, tie people over and to bring in new fans.
I feel like this has been in production for a while, though.
Yeah,
like
the manga
2
first
years.
started. Yeah, the manga itself first started in 2011, and
Damn.
the anime first started.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I mean, I didn't get my hands on that first volume until fucking 2015 or so.
Right. That makes sense. Let's see. I believe there was a motion comic version that was released in 2015. Let's see. It's hard to find any sort of production notes on the manga itself, at least.
Wow, so they've put out almost like a couple per year, pretty much.
I guess so, yeah.
Average like 2 or 3 a year.
At the very least, it seems like they're going at a very steady pace, whereas like something like a Shonen Jump manga writer / artist would probably be working themselves to the bone, trying to like pump out a new chapter every week.
They're actually enjoying themselves.
Hopefully.
They seem to be. Like, they always did a really fun, illustrated illustrated, like, sort of author's note at the end of each volume.
Yeah.
Hey, the seamstress is back.
Fun. He sure is. He's knitted us a new flag. He's not even going to get that joke now, either. It's going to make him so upset.
And
what makes it so funny?
With the new Ultraman anime being announced, a lot of people were excited about it. We just got off of the Godzilla anime, which had a lot of varying reactions. We had Gridman, which was generally well liked, and it's funny. Interestingly enough, it's so fascinating seeing how people are genuinely surprised by the premise of Ultraman, because it is very different from what I guess a lot of traditional fans were expecting, where to basically give a brief synopsis of Ultraman, it's a direct sequel to the original 1966 television series that started it all, in an alternate timeline where no other Ultramen showed up afterwards. So many years pass, Hayata realizes, oh shit, I was Ultraman, and somehow my memories of that whole series were wiped out. And not only do I still have powers left over from Ultraman, but my son has inherited these powers. So now, many years later, the Science Patrol is back in business, but now it's sort of like a secret Men in Black style sort of covert ops group. And Shinjiro, the son of Hayata, he eventually comes to realize he has powers. He joins the Science Patrol, and he and several other individuals dons a suit of armor reminiscent of Ultraman, and other Ultraman suits being homages of real-life future Ultramen, as they fight aliens and monsters that are secretly coming back and becoming more and more of a public issue. So it's like Ultraman by means of Kamen Rider with the aesthetic of metal heroes. And for this series, I feel like it's kind of like comparing this to the Godzilla anime. It's like the Godzilla anime tried to do something drastically different, not drastically different in terms of sci-fi, but drastically different in terms of the Godzilla franchise. But in my opinion,
making him a plant, yes, I would say so.
Making it post-apocalyptic, making it more sci-fi, morally driven, psychological, morally ambiguous mumbo jumbo garbage, and it didn't work.
Making it animated. Let's give it its due credit. No, I'm kidding.
So, whereas with the Godzilla anime tried something new and failed at it, I think this one tried something new and succeeded at it. That's what I would say.
But it also takes it back to...
It all comes down to one very important distinction. The Ultraman anime is entertaining.
Yes.
And the Godzilla anime trilogy was not.
Right. That's the thing. Yeah,
it's freaking well paced, and it's like the ultimate bingeable TV. Netflix really has their formula down.
Oh, totally.
And I feel like that's baked into the original manga as well. I mean, those things were a breeze to read.
Mm-hmm. And I believe it was each episode covered, like 2 episodes covered 1 volume of the manga. So like by episode 6, I found out, okay, so we got to the point where I've already read all of this story arc. And so everything after episode 6 was all totally new material for me.
Yes, having looked at all of the covers for the volumes that have come out since I stopped reading, I have determined that the season goes up through about volume 7.
Right. So that's about the halfway mark of all the volumes that have been released so far as I know.
So they got like 1 more season in them, and then they're going to have to wait until they make a whole bunch of new stuff.
I believe currently there are like 12 volumes.
Yeah. I'm not sure, like, as far as we know, as of the time of this recording, it has not been confirmed whether or not this is going to get a second season, but I certainly do hope so. I do want
it's impossible to tell what the ratings are like, because Netflix doesn't release those numbers.
Oh, right. We have no idea.
Unless it's, like, super positive. But from what I understand, like, I think they take the first couple weeks and consider that their main ratings. Like the first couple of weeks, or maybe like the first month, and then everything after that doesn't matter.
People who actually have watched it, that I've seen react to it, like actually watch the whole thing, have liked it. I've seen online.
Yeah, but there's always this,
by and large,
there's always this like small group of people who seem absolutely baffled by the premise of the show. It's like,
yeah,
oh, they don't turn giant, and it's like, first off.
It reminds me a lot of like last month when there were a bunch of people, and there are a million different reasons that people were like boycotting Captain Marvel, but one of the big ones was like, oh, well, I like the DC Captain Marvel, # not my Captain Marvel, and I'm like, it's a different thing altogether.
So I was like, did you not know this was based off a 2011 manga that's been a thing for a while now?
Well, people got pissed about it back then, if you remember.
Yeah, it's like, also, did you not see the trailers at all that showed that this was about a boy who wears an Ultra Iron Man suit?
They probably just saw the way the suit looks and just didn't like it. You know, they just looked at it and that's not my Ultraman.
And it's just seeing
from like an aesthetic point of view, it might even look like, oh, well, that's the Godzilla anime equivalent to what of doing it to Ultraman, just from looking at like a poster of it. I'm not saying when you watch it that comes off that way.
It isn't even as if, though, that it's the first Ultraman design to go super, like, mechanized, you know? Like, there have been previous Ultramen who have had that sort of aesthetic going on. What's that one that was a movie, and it looked very, like, sort of... It looked like a robot, even though it wasn't.
Ultraman the Next?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the one that was, like...
Oh, is that the one where they put the actual skin on him?
Yeah, it was like kind of gave him more like insectoid eyes, and they showed like the red parts of his body are actual muscle and the silver parts of his body are armor.
Yeah. That design, it looks closer to traditional Ultraman, but it's also very mechanical looking, even though it's not supposed to be. So it's not as if aesthetically this is that much of a leap forward.
And funny enough, it's like, looking at the history of Ultraman in animation, it seems like they've always been, like, experimenting with the Ultraman brand in order to appeal to different demographics. I believe it was way back in 1979, there was a TV series called The Ultraman, which featured Ultraman Jonius. He's the Ultraman with like a star on his forehead. That was pretty much like as close as you can get to a straight adaptation of taking the Ultraman format and translating that into animation. After that, there was another program called Ultraman Kids, which was just like Ultraman, but everyone's like a little baby preschooler, and they go on little adventures and deal with the monsters who are sometimes their friends or sometimes their bullies. Later on, there was a little program called, I think it was like Ultraman Super Galaxy Legend, I think. Let's see. It was...
What was that? What was that like American one where there were like 3 Ultramen and like... You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
USA?
Yeah, Ultraman. In Japan, it's known as Ultraman USA. In America, it was known as Ultraman: The Adventure Begins, which was a pilot that could have. I believe it was like a collaboration between. What was it? A collaboration between like Tsuburaya and an American animation company in the hopes of creating a new series, but unfortunately, that series just never came to pass, and it just stayed as a rejected pilot movie that's now available on Blu-ray in Japan.
It's really interesting. Usually you hear it the other way. It's usually some like American executive who like ships an idea off to a bunch of Japanese animators, you know? This is like reverse Thundercats.
Right. Let's see. Oh, and that other project was called Ultraman Super Fighter Legend, and it's like this weird thing you can find on Dailymotion where it's like the Ultramen are kind of like these teenage shonen jump style protagonists who wear power armor and fight evil aliens on other planets. And the last animated project I believe that was made was called The Ultraman, Jackal vs. Ultraman, which was a short animated, an animated short that was in a 2015 Japanese Animator Expo based off of the manga The Ultraman, which followed this evil villain named Jackal who was taking over the world and the universe and killing, beating up, defeating every Ultraman that stood in his path until a new Ultraman named Ultraman Melos appeared wearing a particular style of armor to take on Jackal. And I would say that is another very good adaptation of the a straight adaptation of the what fans expect out of Ultraman. So... yeah, they've had like a lot of different styles.
So this is far from the first time this kind of thing has been done, really.
Right. This is far from the first time, and Ultraman 2019 is just like the latest version of it, in which they, instead of doing it for kids or doing it for teenagers or doing it for old school fans, this is kind of like a new thing for a new generation, while also having deep roots set in the original series that started it all.
It is the first one to be CG animated, though, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
I'll say this. I much prefer 2D animation, obviously, and I would like for everything to look like Dragon Ball Z all the time. But, especially in comparison to something like the Godzilla trilogy or, just any of the other CG anime we've seen, I really felt that the animation in this Netflix anime was very well executed. And I can certainly understand the reason for doing it this way, because animating those suits of armor in 2D would be a gigantic pain in the ass. So I understand it, and I think it actually looks pretty good, despite having a preference for 2D.
Mm-hmm. I can see that too, especially where I'm not sure if the animation industry in Japan has become more strict with like stricter deadlines, but I can see them having a much easier time creating a CG model and simply animating that, as opposed to redrawing the same complicated armor design over and over again. I mean, sure, they did it in the 80s and the 90s, but I guess for whatever reason, maybe it was like a budget thing, maybe it was a cost-cutting thing, maybe it was a time-saving thing that they decided to do the whole thing in CGI. Or that,
I will say, though, it does create one issue, though, when the characters are not in their suits and they're just walking around, like in the scenes where Shinjiro is walking around with his like friends from high school and they're like talking. I'm used to anime mouth movements not matching the dub. That's just a thing that you learn to live with, but it looks really weird in CG. It almost looks like the characters are like lagging or something.
Right. I think it's something I mentioned before. It's like because the mouth movements in CG are more complicated, that makes it more difficult to sync up with the mouth flaps. So yeah, it does look very awkward when you're listening to it dubbed. And I do have some issues with the CG animation. One thing is the inconsistency in terms of cell shading. So, like, a lot of Japanese animation, Japanese CG animation try to go the cell shading route in an attempt to replicate the look and feel of 2D animation. And here they do it through cell shading, which, like, if you're a fan of, like, the Dragon Ball Z video games, you know that's exactly what they do to imitate the look of the show. So with the cell shading, it's okay for the most part. However, it's very inconsistent where the characters' skin, like the flesh, the tones, the clothes are cell shaded, but the armor is completely shaded in a very different style. The backgrounds are more realistically shaded. And it kind of makes things very inconsistent. And when you see like Shinjiro or his father Hayata's face on an Ultraman armored body, it gets really distracting seeing the brightly cell-shaded face on top of a more, like, gradient-shaded armor, shiny armor.
Yeah, I didn't like that first Hayata fight with Bemular when he takes off the trench coat and he goes, "I am Ultraman." I thought that fight was it looked really weird. Like it just looked really slow. It looked like it was in slow motion at some points, and then not intentionally though. And like not like the fight was slowing down, but like the animation was lagging, like we've been talking about. But it had nothing to do with mouth movements. Just had to do with fight movements.
Also,
I thought it got better. I thought it got better as it went along for sure. In almost every way. I don't even just mean that in terms of the animation. I thought the whole show got better as it went along.
True.
But that first fight definitely didn't strike me well.
Yeah, I had that cell shading problem the most, I think, with Ito.
Oh, okay.
That's a character design, obviously, that stands out a lot anyway. But like,
big time.
But there's a ton of like intricate shading work that gets done on his head because of all the little like crevices and shit, you know, to make him look like his head is a dog turd. Essentially, that's the aesthetic.
a rotten banana head.
Like it stands out a lot. I feel. There are also some times when some of the creatures don't look great. The biggest one, in my opinion, is like Black King. When he shows up, I'm like, am I watching Reboot all of a sudden? Like, it's...
He looked a little a pre-render cutscene kind of thing,
and
like storyboard for a movie.
Another issue.
But yeah, I thought it was I thought it was a mixed bag. Like it looked really good a lot of the time. Like especially when like the aliens were like talking shit to the different Ultramen. Like it looked really good. It looked like old school Dragon Ball Z mixed with like Hellsing or Devilman, where it gets really dark and gross. Yeah. And I like that they did not skip out on the violence. Like, I felt like it was more violent than the fucking manga was in some ways.
Like the scene with the not Bolton alien, I feel like his introduction was like executed perfectly from what it was in the manga. Whereas
I felt like it was better.
Where Ultraman,
it was just the animation, but yeah, no, it was definitely really like that struck me in the same way it was supposed to strike Shinjiro, where it's like, I'm not ready for this. Right. I'm just a kid.
He just comes in.
I'm just a boy.
He just comes in and sees like not Bolton just like sucking the life juices out of his victims. He's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah. No, that was really well done.
Another issue I had was this was only for like the first two for the first fight in the whole series between Hayata and Bemular, and that was the odd lack of sound, like the weird sound editing, where it's like for whatever reason the punches just don't have that sense of weight or impact. It almost sounds like the punches were
felt that too.
Muted. Like,
I wasn't sure if it was the animation or maybe it was the sound quality, but I totally felt that. I don't know what was going on in that first fight between Hayata and Bemular. Just didn't feel right. And the fight between Shinjiro and Bemular didn't feel like that. It felt a lot more like a real smooth fight, and when things slowed down, it felt intentional. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe they were just like, yeah, Hayata's done. He's out of the game. Or it's like, and you think like, this is a man in his probably late 60s, early 70s. Like, maybe they should have thought of that earlier. If they could have put, Dan or Jack or even Shinjiro, anybody in that suit, like maybe they should have just let Hayata retire 10 years ago.
It's possible, like, maybe there was a version of episode 2 that had, like, the correct style of, the correct sound editing, but maybe they they sent the wrong version to Netflix, who then uploaded it to their website.
Yeah, but I don't think it was just that. I really felt like the animation, there was something, it felt like somebody else was doing it in the first 3 episodes, and then they gave it to another house, and then for the rest of it, it just suddenly looked better.
Yeah, true.
But it wasn't perfect either the rest of the time either. There was definitely, some weird moments where you're like, yeah, this doesn't look finished.
The biggest issue I have with this is an issue I've talked about many times when it comes to CG Japanese animation, and that's like the frame rate of the animation, where for whatever reason, it's still, because Japan is so insistent on replicating, again, the look and feel of 2D animation, they lowered the frame rate to match the frame rate of their 2D animation, which looks fine in 2D, for me, it always looks awkward in 3D. In certain times, though, when the action gets really intense, the frame rate actually improves a lot.
I thought it was a lot better, not to keep comparing it, but obviously that there are obvious comparisons to be made. I thought it was a lot better than the frame rate that we saw in those Godzilla movies, though.
True.
There was a lot of very fluid movement. By the time we got to like the last third of the season, by the time Ace shows up, at that point the show looks pretty good the rest of the way through, I think.
Yeah. It almost felt like we were watching the animators going through the learning process as they were going along.
Do you guys feel like there were definitely some lighting inconsistencies too? I feel like that stuck throughout the whole show. Like sometimes it was like, am I supposed to be able to see that better than I can? That plant thing at the end, I could not get a beat on what the hell that thing looked like. Maybe it was just because we only ever saw it at night, and then at the end they were fighting in front of like a burning building, so the lighting was just very like, very atmospheric, but I could never get a really good sense of what the hell, or even the other alien hitman that whose name I can't remember, that they were fighting. I just could never really get a good sense of what they looked like because of the lighting. But the animation was super inconsistent. I felt as good as it was at certain points. Like sometimes when they were just walking around, like it almost looked like the people almost looked rotoscoped. It looked so good. But in the intricacy of the alien designs, that's you can't discredit that, even if characters like Black King didn't look great when they were moving around.
You can tell what scenes get the most attention.
They actually did get motion actors for the series,
so that's why. Yeah, I thought it looked, it was really impressive, but then when it didn't look like that, it was really noticeable. Like the fight, it's one of those shows where it's like when they're fighting and when they're just hanging around talking, it looks completely different.
I think this does a better job. One thing to compare this with the Godzilla anime, there are many scenes in the Godzilla anime where characters would just like stand very still and not move at all. Which looks,
there were moments where people would be talking, and I swear the mouths weren't even moving. I feel like in the Godzilla anime,
they were communicating telepathically, like beneath the Planet of the Apes.
I don't think we ever get a moment like that here. At least there weren't any moments that stuck out to me negatively in that way. So I feel like the characters were constantly moving in a way that looked very natural. Unless it's like a background character, which is just like a walk cycle from point A to point B. And I'm looking over at the animation company, which was Production IG, and I think they're a pretty big name in the anime industry, I believe, and most of their stuff seems to be 2D, and they're not really, it's not like Polygon where like they're mostly known for CG animation.
Interesting. So this is kind of their first big foray into CG?
Maybe, I could be wrong, but it's like they're not a company that's like well versed in CG animation, which is very embarrassing when you consider that it's doing a better job than a company that does focus solely on CG animation.
Well, I think the trick here was that they stylistically wanted it to look like it was 2D animated, and I feel like they did a good job of, like in your memories, you can almost go like, oh, I kind of remember it looking like it was 2D animated in certain parts. Mm-hmm. But then in other parts, not at all. So, like, definitely inconsistent, but I would definitely say I don't really remember. I only ever saw the first Godzilla anime movie. I don't really remember what it looked like, but it definitely looked better than that based on my memories.
While we're talking about issues that we have with the series, because I think it's a good idea to get all the complaints out of the way first, and then we can talk about the stuff that we really loved. Can I talk about my biggest issue with this entire show?
Yeah.
And maybe it'll get better later on down the line. I don't know.
Is it that Ultraman isn't giant?
Yes. No, it's his feet. They're the wrong shape. No.
Damn it! The fucking feet. They're too elephant-like. Wait, what?
It's Rena Sayama. Her whole deal. It's hard to get.
It's very strange what's going on there.
It's hard to get a read on her at all.
Yeah.
Like at first she loves Ultraman, then she hates Ultraman, but then she loves Ultraman again.
Her actions aren't very consistent with her ultimate motivate. Her like actions early on in the series don't match her motivations that are revealed later on.
It doesn't help that her backstory makes zero sense.
She reminds me a little bit of that girl that everyone hates in Gundam Wing.
Relena Peacecraft.
Yes, not as bad as that, but
I hate the Gundams. We should all stop fighting. Drop your guns and embrace peace.
Yeah, that was going to go over well. I was really hoping someone would shoot her in the middle of one of those speeches. But, no, it's not as bad as that, but it does remind me a little bit of that. And then the biggest problem for me is that once they get into her backstory, it completely contradicts the timeline that they had previously established.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It makes no goddamn sense.
I'm kind of confused. Could you elaborate, please?
She mentions that when her mother died when she was a baby in the hospital because Ultraman was fighting an alien and the hospital was destroyed.
And it's mentioned to be Zeton, the last villain from the show.
And you see flashbacks of it, and it's just Ultraman. It's like 66 Ultraman.
But you can hear.
But this bitch is not old enough to have been born in the 60s.
Oh,
and even if this is a different timeline, and we could say that maybe this show takes place in like a version of like the 80s or something, even still, like
or the original show takes place in the future is more likely what the authors maybe thought.
I believe
they establish in the first episode that it has been several decades since.
Oh, really?
Hayata lost his memory. Yeah, there's a line.
Look at Hayata. I mean, they age him pretty realistic. Like they wanted him to look like the actor, which he does.
There's a line when Hayata is having his conversation with Ide, and Ide is showing him the images of the plane, that exploded. It feels very much like the 9/11 conspiracy theory. Look at the smoke. There's a line somewhere in that scene.
It was an inside Bemulard job?
Yes. There's a line somewhere in that scene where they establish that it's been several decades since Ultraman left, whenever the fuck that was in this timeline. So there's no way, unless another Ultraman has come to Earth at some point during the timeline and that just hasn't been explained yet, there's no way that makes any sense.
No.
It's like, from what I understand, it's like, it seemed like there are certain, from what I could be wrong here, but I believe it was, even though in later Ultraman shows, it's like Ultraman Mebius, which takes place within the Showa continuity, it acknowledges the fact that Ultraman and Ultra 7 and all the other Ultraman took place in the 60s and 70s, while Mebius takes place in 2006. I believe there were earlier versions of where the original Ultraman series was supposed to take place in the future of 1999.
Oh, well then that would slightly work then, but again, not because of Hayata's age.
Yeah,
so not because of Hayata's age, not because of the line of it having been several decades, and not because she's clearly a teenager.
Right. It's like, yeah, I would say it's possible that like Shinjiro and Rena were born right after Ultraman left, but you're right.
No, there's no way.
Hayata
says, I waited a little while. I waited a little too long to have kids, and it's like, yeah, you really did, man. Like, Jesus Christ. Especially when you see his wife, it's like, Jesus Christ, like, how old were you? How old were you, and how old was she when you got married?
I don't remember seeing his wife at all. When
you see her for 2 seconds when Shinjiro's still a kid in the anime. I don't think you see her in the manga because I didn't remember.
I do remember her. She she briefly talks to Hayata as she does in the
manga.
In the manga, yeah, like volume 2.
All right, I remember it in the anime. I don't remember it in the manga.
Okay.
But she's dead, I guess. They don't establish Shinjiro's status quo at fucking all, and it bugged the hell out. That's one of my biggest problems with this show, and it was with the manga when it came out. Right. Now let me say this: I didn't really get into why I actually got into the manga when it came when I first got my hands on it. Okay. And it's because I really enjoyed the American. I mean, it's not an Americanized Ultraman, but the attempt to go, well, if there was going to be a CW Ultraman show, or if you were going to do an American Ultraman movie, this is kind of how you would do it. You would do like a dark alien invasion, Men in Black meets Smallville kind of approach to it, where it's a young kid who has the Ultraman powers and he's fighting creepy aliens week to week with like a military force behind him. That's exactly the kind of thing that would appeal to American viewers nowadays. You could totally see this on like the CW, but it would be way shittier because it would look like crap.
Right.
I think that doing that with Ultraman, it allowed me to get into, it gave me an into the franchise because I understand those kinds of things so well. And it does that kind of thing really well, despite the fact that they leave a lot of things unexplained, some of them intentionally. It's a show that leaves a lot of things mysterious. I think it's also a thing that, these guys clearly really love Ultraman, but they also grew up in an era where Evangelion was a thing, so they're kind of mixing in some of those tropes in with Ultraman a little bit. There's some Evangelion in this.
Yeah, I don't know if we can trust Ito at all. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I don't know. I think he's one of my issues because it's like he's clearly intentionally mysterious. Like, we're clearly not supposed to understand his deal yet. Like, that's going to be a thing that gets explained later on and have a real reveal, I guess. But
before I forget,
it's just like the Science Patrol as an organization doesn't make any sense to me.
Why?
It's like they don't have any kind of explained like infrastructure before Shinjiro gets like introduced to it. It just kind of seems like the writers are coming up with it as they come up with things. Like, there are other things too. Like Hayata and Shinjiro's relationship is established in one scene, and then suddenly Shinjiro realizes he was Ultraman. And Shinjiro already knows he has powers at that point. They never show us him learning that, which I'm fine with that. We can skip that, but we're never told how much time exactly has passed since Shinjiro found out he has powers. The scene where he and Hayata have their sort of tense argument. Hayata's like, "Oh, I know you cut out all your extracurricular activities in the last few weeks." So it's implied that within the last few weeks, Shinjiro has kind of put together like, "Hey, I have some kind of superpowers." But we don't get any kind of sense of what his life was before that. That was my problem, and we don't know if he and Hayata were having problems before that. We don't. I just wanted a little more before Hayata went into a coma, or even after. They could have done it after. Not even in flashback, just had them interact more after. But he and Hayata had so little screen time together.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem.
That was one of my biggest issues with it. But there were other things too that I just think, needed to be explained. Does Dan have superpowers, or is it just the Ultra 7 suit?
It's the Ultra 7 suit.
Allows.
If you notice, he gets the strength boost from the suit that all the suit gives all the other people, but he doesn't have any specium weapons. He has to use the sword to do all of his cutting.
And he can't fly.
See, I was confused by that, though, because there's one bit where, he doesn't have the suit. This is before he fights his Ultra 7, and he, like, grabs Shinjiro by the chin when he's in the suit and, like, pushes him against the wall. And I was like, oh, so they're showing that he has superpowers. Or maybe that he's just a military guy and he knows how to grab somebody.
That's probably the case.
I guess that was it, but I knew that he was going to be Ultra 7, so I thought in the moment, like, oh, they're establishing he has superpowers now. So
Maybe Shinjiro has that like Goku thing where you can like get him, like you can catch him off guard.
Just under the chin, like Dan knew he read that.
That's his Achilles heel. That's his Achilles chin.
No, I'm not talking about the tail thing. I'm talking about how like in more recent continuity, it's been established that like if you catch Goku off guard, you know, a bullet or a laser beam can hurt him.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, I didn't even have you know, he's a military guy. You know, and he didn't have the armor on, so he can. I had no problem with him just grabbing a certain spot on him and getting an edge on him, especially since he wasn't expecting it. I just was confused because I knew he was going to become an Ultraman character. Shinjiro has powers, and they explain why Ace has the super strength even without the armor.
Right. Because he's a cyborg.
But they never really explained that for Dan. So I was wondering if we're going to get to that down the line. Or even Jack as well. We don't know why he has super strength,
right?
Or was that explained in like a throwaway?
I think he's at least part alien.
Yeah, he says like he's an Earthling, but he's not entirely human.
Yeah.
All Earthling means is that he's born on Earth, and he's born in a version of Earth where there are aliens running around. So, I think he's either fully or partially alien.
I just felt like there were things that were left mysterious on purpose, and there were things that I felt like were just dropped, and like I couldn't keep them together in my head, and that was like my only problem with it. And that was my problem with the manga too. I remember we talked about that very same problem with the manga, where it was like feels like it's mysterious just for the sake of mystery, but I'm enjoying it, so it's like this conflict I have, and I feel the same way about this. It's enjoyable. I was never bored. I like all the characters. They're the way it uses the superhero and the kaiju genre and everything that this is paying homage to is brilliant. I love all the thematic stuff, but I think they need to like world build for an episode. Just do a whole episode of world building, because I think
it reminds me a lot.
It's a little scatterbrained right now.
It reminds me a lot of like the first season of Attack on Titan, right? It's like a whole lot of. They explain some things, but they keep a lot of stuff mysterious, and then the whole season builds up to like this climactic fight, and then it's a huge open-ended thing that we're going to wait forever to see the conclusion of.
Only to realize that the writer was just making it all up as he was going.
Do you guys think it's too much though, or do you think it's fine?
I think it's fine. I mean, I feel like episodes. Episodes 5 and 6, which was volume 3, that was attempting to pull off a little bit of world building as well, with the whole like a secret society of monster and alien people.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying there's no world building. I said I wanted more. Like we needed one episode where that was all we were doing.
I mean, there's definitely like bits and hints of a culture surrounding the original Ultraman. You know, the fact that we have that whole museum there. We have the secrecy of the Science Patrol, but they want to get their secret alien fighting business out in the open so that can be less of a hassle. People are slowly becoming more and more aware of aliens existing.
But not really of the Science Patrol. They make Ultraman public before the Science Patrol, which I thought was
strange,
an important distinction, though.
Right?
Because that's Ito's plan. Obviously, he's doing that on purpose. Put Ultraman out there in the spotlight. We'll stay in the shadows. He was probably my favorite character. Just even like from watching him, I didn't get to his dub actor.
Oh, his fucking
Japanese.
His voice is really good. His English voice is really fun to listen to.
Yeah,
see, it sounds like this.
It's got this.
No, the Japanese guy did the same thing. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
I don't know if the voice actor was just doing that or if they ran it through like a
filter.
Or something, yeah. They played around. They played around with Audacity. And
if we both listened to them back to back and they both sounded like the same kind of modulation, it's got to be digital, I would imagine, because that would just be really hard to replicate both times.
Unless DC Douglas is that good of an actor,
possible. But I really enjoyed him just as a presence, but definitely wanted to fucking understand his deal. Especially since he sits in a room. For the most of the season,
Yeah, the only time he leaves
doesn't leave that room at all, and then it's the end of the season.
That building, I think, is when he goes and gives that information to Seiji.
Yeah, no, it's only at the end when he finally makes his big move to
It's like the only time we ever see him
to almost get everybody killed.
The only time we see him out in the wild. And for an organization that makes a big deal about, hey, you aliens, you got to wear a disguise when you go out in public, he didn't have any hologram going on.
Yeah, well, it's like he's the most relaxed of all of them about everything. You know, like Ide is like super cautious about security, and Dan's obviously super cautious about security.
Yeah.
So
another thing,
he was the one who was the most like, yeah, whatever. Let's let the fucking kid in. He might kill some aliens for us. It'll be awesome.
I'd love to see some more members of the original Science Patrol show up in the future.
Oh, yeah, that'd be.
Like,
I was missing some.
Like maybe the girl. What's her name?
Fuji,
yeah.
Fuji and Arashi.
Arashi was the other. I like him a lot. I see one. This isn't a problem because I didn't notice it while I was actually watching the new show, but it's only retroactive now that I've watched a few episodes of the old Ultraman. Man, Ide just really mellowed out in his old age because he was a fucking goofball on the old show.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Just a guy now, and it's like I don't have a problem with it, especially if maybe they do something with it down the line. But I don't know, maybe he could have cracked a few jokes.
Well, I feel like he's gone through a lot of shit since the '60s. Everything's
Obviously.
gone.
the man.
He went through a lot through the future '60s.
Yeah.
He basically just went from like Captain America: The First Avenger to Winter Soldier without the 70-year sleep in between. Like he just, like he's
looks good for his age. I'll say that. In his animation.
Yeah. I think
I enjoyed him being the character that they bring back though, because he has more fucking screen time than Hayata in the original show, at least in the episodes I saw.
I think he's the most memorable of the original crew, aside from maybe like the commander.
Kapu, yeah.
he's definitely dead, right? So
the actor is dead.
I meant the character, but okay.
Since we're going back to the
he's
beginning,
he's still alive in all our hearts.
Since we're going back to the beginning a little bit, I will say, I thought they could have made a bigger deal out of Hayata being the Minister of Defense, because that's a big fucking deal.
Oh yeah, he never does
anything. He has bodyguards.
We never see him at work. I mean, we see him at his side job, obviously, but we never see him. Is he
still the Minister of Defense now? Like when Shinjiro was a teenager? That was when Shinjiro was a kid. I got the sense that he had retired and was now just working for the Science Patrol.
I don't know how Japanese political positions work, so.
But it's because he's so old, like he just has the energy to fight aliens occasionally.
He probably just gets other people to do his kohais to do everything for him.
Yeah, no, I like I said, Matt, I really felt like the biggest issue, this being like the series, is like a hero's journey story for Shinjiro.
Yeah,
we just don't get enough of a sense of his life before the Ultraman stuff happens.
True, this
like
is all the
Ultraman stuff is done really, really, really well. It's really good superhero, science fiction, action, monster stuff, alien invasion.
But
like as a character piece, it's lacking. Let's put that out there.
Since Bill pointed out his favorite character, I'll say, and not going to be a shock to anyone, I fucking love Moriboshi.
Yeah.
He's the greatest anime character of the last 5 years. He's amazing. I love him.
He's the best hard ass ever.
I mean, Ultra 7 is my favorite Ultraman.
Damn.
Ultra 7 is my favorite Ultraman anyway, and he is, I think, much more violent in his series than the original Ultraman was in his. And so taking him and making him the Vegeta to Shinjiro's Goku is just, mwah, I love it. It's great. I will say, though, I really liked Ace, though, that kid. I liked him a lot as well.
Yeah.
See, I was really distracted because I thought I didn't know what Ultraman he was supposed to be, because they never gave him a name,
right?
And I didn't know what design that was supposed to be, but it looked a lot like Gridman, at least the original Gridman, like the head.
There was a reference to it in the last episode where the mercenary he was fighting, which is Ace Killer, interestingly enough, goes, "Oh, was that the ace up your sleeve?" And then he's like,
"Yeah." I didn't even notice that. And
then he blasts him in the chest with the arm cannon.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that either.
But I the head on the original Gridman, like the suited Gridman from the 80s or 90s, like the head on that looked exactly like Ace's head. So I was like, is this supposed to be Gridman? Like, what the fuck? Also, in the Japanese version,
if you go back and look at what they should have done, I think, to make it more apparent that he was supposed to be Ultraman Ace, is accentuate the feature on Ultraman Ace that I think sets him apart the most, and that's those killer metal sideburns he's got going on.
Oh, yeah.
He's too young for sideburns. See, in the Japanese version, he's voiced by a girl, and I spent his first episode thinking he was a girl. The
old Frieza conundrum.
That thing is a guy?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Because especially since when he's in the fucking suit, he's walking around like a fucking stripper. Like, it's very Deadpool, though. I think that's what they're going for. Like, he's kind of acting like Deadpool.
Yeah.
Is sort of the idea.
More like lackadaisical attitude when he's fighting.
Yeah, but it was very, like, sensual, slinky. I'm like, what is this? Like, because I just couldn't get a beat on it.
He's got robot legs and arms, okay? Maybe he's trying to get used to all of that.
That's perfectly fine. It creeped me the fuck out, though.
I think he's just a very effeminate boy.
Especially since he was
anime.
He's
meant to appeal to a certain subset of Japanese schoolgirls.
In the Japanese version, he calls Hayata, not Hayata, Shinjiro, senpai.
Everyone calls their older friend senpai.
Okay.
Yeah, see, in the English dub, it's less weird because he calls him Big Brother a couple times. He calls him Chief, Boss, stuff like that.
I was a little confused by his character in that regard because, like,
you should go back and watch this again with the dub.
I don't want to. I didn't like it.
He sounds like a dude this time.
It gets better, but the reason I'm saying you should do it is that it might clear up some of those little weird points that didn't translate well.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing.
Just in terms of, like, there was very little build up to suddenly, hey, like, I'm gonna stalk you and you're my big brother. You know, like we just didn't get enough of a sense of, like, what exactly did he see Shinjiro do beyond being the original Hayata and Ultraman's son that really, like, made him go, oh, I like you, you know?
There is a moment early on.
I don't think he genuinely likes him. He's just trying to be on his good side so he can eventually join the Science Patrol.
But eventually he does, and you know, it was a little bit of a clunky build, but I really liked the final stuff with Ace at the end was awesome.
I really liked in episode 11
stuff.
I really liked in episode 11 where Shinjiro confronts him, and then Moroboshi shows up and wrecks his shit. That was a really cool fight between the three of them.
Right. Here's an interesting note about the...
It was a very Civil War kind of moment.
Yeah.
I don't know when that happened in the manga, if that was after the Civil War movie, but it looked a lot like that, but it was cool.
It probably wasn't, because it started in 2011, so I imagine they would have reached that before 2016.
Excuse me, sorry.
Here's the interesting note about the original Ultraman Ace. He had two hosts, unlike the other Ultramen. One was Seiji Hokuto, and the other was Yuko Minami. So it was a boy and a girl. Which is the girl the girl that he name drops at several points throughout the series.
The alien girl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's definitely intentional. I think he's a very effeminate person. There's a moment early on when he first meets Shinjiro at the school, and he like pulls him in real close to whisper something to him, and I was like, "Are they gonna fuck?" Like it was.
Yeah, no, that's why I was so confused. And then the fact that he was voiced by a girl in the Japanese version just didn't help.
Yeah, but that's pretty common anyway.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
I know. That's why I was so confused. I was like, is this a Gohan situation? Gohan Goku situation?
If he's not wearing a skirt, he's not a girl. He's not a girl.
That's what I figured.
He was wearing the school uniform that all the boys were wearing. It's slightly
different. That's again.
Unless this anime is trying to be very progressive in its depiction of.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like,
girls.
Maybe he's like because he's kind of a renegade, so or she's kind of a renegade, or whatever I thought at the time. So maybe putting on the slacks, like those women in the 20s.
Maybe this is a sleepaway camp situation. He's really a girl, but that red alien raised him to be a boy because he wanted a boy.
That's the only part of that movie I've ever fucking. I've ever seen. Somebody showed me that one time.
That was an interesting character. His dad figure, the kind of lobster-looking guy. I don't know what he's supposed to be.
Yapul. He's Yapul. He's the
I figured that was a.
He's the main villain from Ultraman Ace.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
The guy raising him then.
Yeah, but you're right. He was a very cool character, and it's very interesting to have like a boy who was raised completely by aliens.
They were able to make him make sense by the end, because I spent a lot of the series going, what the fuck is this guy's deal? And then finally they were like, oh, all right. So Bemular just kind of... He doesn't really know what the deal with Bemular is, either. Bemular just pawned this whole situation off on him.
Yeah, there's like this whole conspiracy revolving around... we haven't mentioned... we mentioned a little bit of Jack, but he's, there's not much to say about him yet, other than Shinjiro kind of looks up to him as somewhat of like an older brother figure, because... Yeah,
I guess he's American?
He's way too scared of Dan to confide in Dan. But
right, he's scared of Dan.
Yeah, I love that one moment where it's like he was thinking about telling Rena his secret, but then he looks up at Dan, and Dan
has like a telepathic weird conversation with him.
But it's like technically he's not communicating. He's like communicating to him solely by his stare.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that was cool.
A great moment. But like, yeah, there's this whole subplot going around that's kind of further adding to this whole giant conspiracy between Adad, Jack, Bemular, apparently the Galactic, whatever it's called, the
Galactic Alliance,
the Star Cluster Council.
Exactly, the Star Cluster Council, which supposedly it has a good relationship with the humans. They might not actually have so good of a relationship, and there are aliens.
Well, apparently they were behind blowing up that plane, even though it had their search party members on it. So I would like to know the.
Well, it seems like they were setting a bunch of people up who they didn't like. That was the impression I was given by that.
Maybe the idea was, we'll send them to Earth and have them assassinated there, and nobody will care to look into it because it's fucking
exactly. Earth. Well, it seems like they don't. It seems like they don't want Earth brought into the fold, or they don't want them brought into the fold in the way that they would be. Yeah, and that they're trying to set it up like, we're going to make the relationship between Earth and aliens as bad as possible.
And
then why was Bemular defending the plane? What's his whole deal? He's clearly not a straight up villain, at least. As we all thought
we're gonna have to talk about him. Yeah.
And then there's Adad. It's like, what's he up to? What's Jack up to?
I've seen that Ultraman character before. Where is he? Is he from 66? The one who you think is an evil assassin, and then it turns out to just be turns out to be an undercover spy of some kind.
Yeah, Adad is Dada spelled backwards. Dada is a species of alien from the original series. They're the ones with the zebra stripes and the big lips. They kind of look like Michael Jackson.
Right.
But they're from 66. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's the thing. Are most of the aliens in this pulled from 66, or is it a little menagerie of like
It's a menagerie, mixed. Yeah. Okay. Like the villain.
All the characters who are involved in Ace's story are from Ace.
And the villain.
That's awesome. That's awesome. They kept that so specific.
And the alien that Dan Moroboshi fights for the first time in the Ultraman version 7 suit. That alien is based off of, I think, Metron from Ultra 7.
Yeah, Metron.
Oh, that's cool. They picked one from Ultra 7 for him to kill for the first time.
Yeah, in fact,
does Ultra 7 have a sword in that show?
No, but he
come
has
up with that for this.
But a lot of his fatalities are very cutty. So
that was really a really cool way to distinguish him from the other two. Because they the other two look really similar and fight very similarly. So it was just very cool to have like a fucking samurai in there. It was a nice change of pace.
Okay. I got some images that were put together by Daikaiju Tony, and I'll send you guys these images that he made comparing the old character designs with the new character designs.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. There we go. Sending it to you through Skype of all the characters and the tokusatsu characters that inspired them.
One thing that I feel like the show could have done a better job explaining, and I figured it out later on, but the whole thing with the Pigmon-looking guy and the conspiracy to murder the people who were trolling Rena, and the whole thing that Adad was investigating, it was all kind of confusing, and it was only later that I was able to put the pieces together.
Yeah, it was a little convoluted.
That's supposed to be Pigmon?
Yeah, at least like when you get a good look at the alien prince / assassin's hair, the four-eyed guy, it looks like
the hair.
It's the hair.
It's the hair that gives it away. He looks like a coral reef.
Yeah.
What did they call him at the end? The last guy they fought?
Ace Killer.
Ace Killer.
Ace Killer. Okay.
And that's straight up just his name from the original. So.
Right, he's the only one who keeps his name from the original. Everyone else is like a different name.
Yeah. Yeah, Bolton's analog is called Atticus. It's cicada spelled backwards.
Right. Bemular
okay.
still has his name.
Yeah, Bemular.
Yeah, but he's not this. He's definitely nothing of the same character.
As far as we know.
He's definitely not a lake monster.
Probably not.
That one that was actually carrying out the assassinations is that one that I've seen that clip of a million times. When he gets killed in the original series, he gets like split like down the middle,
right,
like,
in the middle,
vertically,
and they're fighting in front of a sunset.
And then like his like innards spill out, don't they? Like a little bit, like he falls apart. It's great.
Oh, I remember. I forgot. I keep forgetting. Bolton was in this series. He was like the rock that can pull off different illusions. And like when Shinjiro was about to kill him, Bolton puts on like the psychic illusion that it's a teenage girl saying, "Please don't kill me."
It was Rena. Yeah.
Is that the one from the original series that like those kids created with their imagination, and then Ultraman had to murder it at the end of the episode, and it was super sad?
No, that was a different one. That was Giboza?
That was Gabadon, I think.
Gabadon, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the same one at first, and I thought that was like they were doing like something clever there, where it's like Ultraman is having this crisis of whether or not it's okay to kill aliens, and the alien he has to kill is the saddest death from the original series, but it's not him.
Yeah, I do like that, where it's like, because Shinjiro is now in the shoes of Ultraman, he has to deal with the responsibilities that come with being Ultraman, and that is to act as like the judge, jury, and executioner, and it's a really messed up sort of position to be in that he learns to accept over time.
Yeah, he's not the Judge Dredd type. I'm interested to know what your thoughts were on that whole sort of moral crisis, Bill, because I remember when you first were shown episodes of the original Ultraman, you were very questioning of the main hero's moral character in terms of straight up murdering Kaiju and also fucking with Hayata's life. So how did you feel about
because of the way it was presented? The first episode is I feel the worst offender, just because they don't show Bemular doing anything bad. It's like obviously he's the bad guy. Like Ultraman tells Hayata like, hey, listen, I've been chasing him for a while. We should probably do something about him. So obviously as somebody watching it as reading many sci-fi scripts over the years, like I get it. But they don't actually show Bemular doing anything wrong. So when Ultraman like is the one who fucking gets in the little accident with fucking Hayata. So looking at it not as a thing that has this whole series afterwards where Ultraman like saves the world, but just as like an individual little story, it just seems like this fucking alien who gets in a car accident with a guy, takes over his life and then murders a lake monster. It just, if you look at it from the raw imagery. So it's only in episode 2 when what is that alien called? That's not Bolton. The one in episode 2 of the actual Ultraman 66 that the cicada thing in the anime is based on.
What? Huh?
Okay. What's the alien in the second episode of Ultraman called?
Bolton.
All right, I thought so.
Yeah.
There was another character that you guys mentioned that had like the same name, so I got confused, and I was like, "Oh, is that not Bolton?" Okay.
Bolton. There's Bolton and Bolton.
All right, see, that's why I got confused.
A lot of these names are a bit similar.
But then I know that the character that's based on Bolton in the show is not called that. He had like the cicada name, so that's what I was asking. All right.
Okay.
So I thought, outside of the way the original Ultraman is presented, that the whole moral quandary was handled really, really well in this. Because you take this kid who, and he finds out he has superpowers, and he starts to experiment with them, and they just suddenly are like kill aliens, just like blood battle and protecting the world. And there's a lot of stuff like this, like that Buffy this is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer formula to a T. And I think this is one of the best things it's showing, like how much it fucks with somebody who's never done something like this before. How hard it is to go from I'm just a regular kid going about day-to-day life, blah blah blah, to it's like that kind of all quiet on the Western Front kind of thing. Like, oh, the adventure of war sounds so appealing, and then you get to the reality, and it's like I got trench foot. Because that was done super well.
Because we mentioned before, like in our old reviews for the Ultraman manga, that Shinjiro grew up kind of like idolizing Ultraman. You know, he had these big, enjoyed the idea of being a hero, being praised by people, even when before he became Ultraman, you know, trying to help out Rena when she was being harassed by boys. He was like, "Halt there, in the name of justice."
Right, but it's you know, it's a double-edged sword as well, though, because on the one hand, you're like, oh, he is this noble, he has noble aspirations, but he wants to fuck her, you know, like he wants to get in her pants.
He's a teenager.
And so would he have stepped in if Rena was a nerdy guy? You know, that's what you have to ask.
True.
But at the same time, it's like, well, does that really matter in the moment? I don't know. But Andres, I thought that was interesting, you know, as two people who like Devilman, thought it was an interesting little parallel to that scene in the Devilman, you know, the original Devilman manga, where, you know, Akira and his girlfriend are being bullied by, you know, they're way more like exaggerated street toughs with like knives and shit.
Right.
But it's such a different kind of thing though, because it's somewhat glorifying the idea of stepping up and fucking up the bad guys.
Yeah.
But in this, it's completely different. You know, it's not like he comes across these like rapists. They're just like other school kids who are kind of assholes, you know? And he shatters the one kid's leg. It's a really great scene. And I remember when we first read the manga, I raved about it as well. But there's stuff like that all throughout.
Right. It's just like expectation.
And because of the level of violence they're able to show in this, and that these Japanese things are willing to go to, and because they're aliens that were able to show getting ripped apart.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was able to push that line of, well, you're a teenager and now you're fucking ripping living things apart way further than any American superhero thing has been able to. So that's impressive.
Like taking the idea of like the ideal like kid-friendly hero fantasy meeting the like realistic expectations of like having a responsibility and defending the world, even if it means taking the most gruesome making the most gruesome of choices, or not the most ideal choices.
Yeah, I mean, where they came to it too was absolutely perfect. I really liked his arc.
Yeah,
even if he needed a fucking status quo at the start, I thought the end of it was really good. Where it's like, oh wait, the fact that I'm really depressed and conflicted over this is maybe why I'm the person who should be doing it, and that's the weight of the hero, you know, where it's like, well, I'm the one who thinks about these things, so I'm probably the one who should be doing it, because if I wasn't doing it, I would still be thinking of it. It's that Spider-Man 2 thing where, you know, he has no powers in Spider-Man 2. He's walking around the city, and he comes across that burning building, and he still runs in.
Yeah.
You know, there's a similar scene where, you know, he finds out Dan can be Ultra 7, and he's walking around like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this then, because I don't really need that in my life. And then he sees that, I forget what exactly, is it a guy falling off some scaffolding or something, and he just like instantly leaps. Or no, it's the monster, like the monster's just like walking around town. But I think Jack set him up. I think that was the deal that was going on there. Jack set him up in that instance. But that was the idea there. It was like, oh, I'm just walking around town. Then you see the monster, it's like, fuck, and he just jumps right into it. So I thought they did it really, really well, but again, he needed more time with his dad. I mean, fucking the original Ultraman,
or like his dad, his mom. Like his mom's not a real character.
I mean that's a huge problem with a lot of these kinds of stories. True. Is when you do the legacy male hero, it's like, oh well, the mom's dead, you know, or she's gone. It doesn't matter, you know.
They're on vacation.
Yeah.
How did you like the moment of him realizing that he could fly?
I thought that was fun, although those people still should have been fucking pancaked, even if he had flu. But that was really fun. I actually forgot about that, because, you know, I hadn't read that in the manga, but I knew that happened, that he learned to fly at one point. It had been put up online before I watched this.
I was still expecting everyone to say, he can fly, he can fly, he can fly!
I know. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Can Ultra 7 not fly in his show?
He can fly in his show.
Yeah, he can fly.
I thought maybe there was a reason why they were like, oh, well, you know, because he has the blood of the original Ultraman, and so that he's the only version that can fly. But okay.
He's also the original Pokemon trainer in his show, but they're not going to bring that into this because for obvious reasons.
Apparently,
yeah, that would be cool if they did though. If they gave Dan or even if they gave him like an alien pet or something, some kind of monster.
Yeah, that
would be cool. That would be cool.
Apparently, according to
he doesn't really seem like the kind of guy for that though. He doesn't seem like a pets kind of guy.
Unless we learn there is a sensitive side to him later in the show.
Yeah, no, that might be kind of good though, because he needs a real life. That guy, like, he's very intense and he's very badass, but.
What if
he needs some kind of real life?
What if instead of a pet monster, they turned what's the one, Wyndham? They turned him into like a mech, and that's like how we finally get a giant fight.
Yeah. Apparently, he gets a bunch of like armor attachments in volume, according to the cover of volume 10.
Okay, so maybe they'll reference those in some fashion there. Maybe give him one with like the big horns for that one monster.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
Can we get into Bimular?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so super tinfoil hat time.
Okay.
Going into crazy conspiracies.
Bimular killed Nixon. I know. And JFK. That's the real conspiracy. It wasn't just
Bimular
JFK.
did not
he also
cause
killed
9/11.
Nixon. Yeah.
Bimular did 9/11. He faked the moon landing. No, I think. And this is going to sound fucking crazy when I first say it.
Okay.
There's a chance that he's secretly the original Ultraman in disguise.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's kind of almost definite.
I feel like it can't be, because there's a moment early on in the manga where you see like part of his face get exposed and it's all like nasty.
That's
looking.
not in this though. That's
right.
The thing.
That didn't happen in the show. But here's the reasons why. It seems like he's going against the Star Cluster Council. That seems to be his main objective. And I feel like if you were an Ultraman and you were going to do that, you would want to like go undercover to like avoid notoriety.
Uh-huh.
I feel like he chooses the name Bimular to send a message to Hayata.
Yeah.
And he very specifically says to Shinjiro, and I don't know what that message would be yet, but he specifically says to Shinjiro, remember that name. And if Shinjiro would just go do some fucking research in that museum that he works at, he would realize that the first monster Ultraman fought would be called that. And then on a meta level, when they first were creating the Ultraman series back in 1966, he was originally going to be a more reptilian creature, and his name was going to be Bimler.
Oh.
And then they changed it to Ultraman, and they named the monster Bimular.
And Ultraman and Ultra 7 do have the ability to shrink into like human size. Ultraman only did it once, but Ultra 7 did it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I got the sense that was almost a given.
And maybe
it couldn't be anything else.
Maybe he needs the armor even, because maybe he's still fucked up from that last fight with Zeton. Who knows? Point is...
Well, I got the sense that there was like raw energy in that suit. And that if he's, Ultraman's a giant of light, maybe he's just traveling around as raw energy, except when he's in that suit now.
And then you go to the scene at the concert, which is a very big moment in the season we should also probably talk about. There's that line where Shinjiro's like, why are you doing this? And Bimular says, because you're trying to become Ultraman. And when you first watch that, you interpret that as, oh, he's trying to prevent the kid from becoming Ultraman. Duh. But in another way, it could be seen as he's testing the kid because the kid is trying to become Ultraman. And it's like...
Well, I think that's why he takes Hayata out and doesn't kill him, though. He takes him out of the fight. He
missed his vital organs on purpose.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that funny? He again, like, here comes the original Ultraman again, fucking up Hayata's life.
Coma for that.
I know, right? Like, yeah, no, I'm 100% with you, D. I mean, you have to at the end. There's the. I mean, this is again massive spoilers, and we're jumping over a whole bunch of other stuff. But there's
also,
the moment where he goes.
Like,
this is not the first time I've saved an Earthling's life, and then they cut to Hayata. So I was like, okay, so yeah, this must be the original Ultraman being traveling around as Bimular.
And if you go look at the cover for the 11th volume of the Ultraman manga,
checking it right now.
It seems pretty apparent to me that they're going to meet the original Ultraman at some point. And if it turns out that it was Bimular the whole time, wouldn't that be quite a twist?
Did you guys notice at the very start, and not to again jump around, but did you guys notice at the very start when they were explaining like the idea of Ultraman, and you see Hayata, he's not in like and you see like, oh, the armor around him. It's not Ultraman's design. It's like this weird modern armor that you never see him in. Do you guys notice that?
No, I didn't.
It's bizarre. You see the young Hayata, and then he transitions into old, and you see Ultraman around him, but it's not the original Ultraman design. It's like this modern armor that maybe we're going to see Hayata in again, because I mean, he can still fight.
I don't know the moment you're talking about, but I do know that later on in the manga, Hayata essentially becomes this manga's version of Zafi. He gets like a new armor, and it's just looks a lot like Shinjiro's, but with like little silver.
Why would they put that in this when you don't even see that in the actual show? Like, why wouldn't they just put the original Ultraman?
I don't remember the moment that you're talking about.
Right, I don't know either.
When was this?
This is the very start when they're going, Ultraman was a giant of light. And this, I mean, not the museum tour, but there's a little like exposition moment at the very start where you see Hayata like staring off at the horizon as a young man, and then he transitions into an old man, and then they cut to the museum bit.
Hold on, I'm watching it right now.
Okay.
You'll see you don't see the original Ultraman's silhouette over him. You see this weird armor that looks like what Shinjiro gets put in. And when I first watched it, I was like, "Oh, is this version different?" And it's not like the original Ultraman show is canon.
I see what you're talking about. I think that straight up is just Shinjiro's armor, though. I think this is just one of those, things where like they're flashing backwards and forwards in time.
But the colors on it are different. It's got like these stripes on it. I remember. But it's also not the original. But it's not the original. It looks the
same to me. It looks the same to me. I mean, it's from behind, so
yeah.
And it's
not It's not the Ultraman. It's not the original Ultraman design though, which is what it should be, because they're talking about the original Ultraman series.
And it's the first thing you see, so I feel like it starts in the present, and then it flashes back, and you see Hayata, because then it starts to explain the past. It's like it's like that moment in Dewey Cox where Tim Meadows is like, he's got to think about his whole life before he goes up on stage. Like, it's that kind of a moment.
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
Oh man, that's
goddamn.
Sorry, folks.
I for a second.
Who's being murdered by Leatherface?
God damn.
Anyway, that's a nitpick, but that was distracting to me.
All right, and let's see, David, is there anything you want to bring up? Because you haven't talked in a while. Or is there anything you want to comment on that we have already covered?
Well, I'm probably the only one that has an issue with this.
Okay.
And it's not just an issue with this show. It's with a lot of animes.
Okay.
And they kind of stretch a single battle to an entire episode.
I've noticed that, yeah. Especially because each of these volumes are like are turned into two-parters.
What they should have done is just, not say creative liberties with that, but just, like trim it. Trim the battles to an even pace so you can have more room for the story. They could have covered more volumes.
I think it makes sense in certain instances and not as much in others. Like the fight at the end kind of needs to be as long as it is because you've got all those story beats going on. There's all the stuff with Ace trying to kill him and failing and then finally succeeding, and then Shinjiro's got to fucking go all Super Saiyan God.
It's possible it's like they were told, maybe it was like an executive decision to turn each volume into 2 episodes, regardless of how much story content is there.
Yeah, I've noticed they did that too. That it seems like 2 episodes cover a single volume, right?
Right. So it's like maybe they wanted to wrap up the volume 1 much sooner than possible. They're like, nope, you got a whole episode to deal with.
Fuck.
I know. Sorry, folks. These idiots picked the wrong day to do that.
It sucks, man.
Have you seen those images from future volumes where Ultraman Taro in this universe is apparently the Human Torch?
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, that's actually a reference to his most powerful attack where he actually sets himself on fire and just like bum rushes his opponent.
That's going to be really interesting to see CG animated.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that CG fire doesn't look like shit.
That's another thing I should bring up. A lot of the
it could go really well or really poorly.
I'm going to assume really poorly because that's one issue I forgot to bring up when it comes to the animation is that a lot
way to be optimistic on
Yeah, I know. I was going to say like
a lot of the particle effects look very awkward in this anime where it's like I've already mentioned the low frame rate. However, the blood effects, the fire effects, and the smoke effects all run like super smoothly, which is kind of distracting when you see characters moving in a choppy fashion, but then they're surrounded by smoke that's all moving much faster and smoother than they are.
All the specium attacks look pretty good.
Yeah, I will give him that.
That's some quality Kamehameha in there.
Yeah, I thought everything again was just very mixed. I thought the water looked weird.
I forgot about the water.
There wasn't a whole lot of water. That was the thing. But
maybe that was the maybe there's a reason.
There was one moment where they went underwater, where Shinjiro, some monster went underwater, and it was like, just looked very strange.
We get a desert episode where we have like a serial killer alien who looks like Antlar. That's all I want out of this in the future.
I'm kind of hoping for Zeton to return.
I feel like that might be part of whatever Ito is building up to. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's actually a really nice guy, but I don't trust him.
No, I feel like
this entire
I don't trust
season.
them non-shifty-eyed looking foreigners.
See, I feel like you're supposed to not trust him, but I feel like he's going to turn out to be at least think he's working in everybody's best interest. He'll probably fuck up somehow, and then he'll need Shinjiro or one of the other Ultramen to do something. Like he tries to do something good, but fucks up.
Maybe one of those situations where he does some like really shady shit, but then come to find out there's a good reason for it, you know? Or...
Yeah, he might be like Ancient One or Odin or any number of Marvel characters.
Then again, he might just be like that fucking alien from the Godzilla anime that I called that out in like the first movie. I was like, he's going to turn out to be a bad guy. I knew from the first movie, I was like, he's going to be a bad guy. And then come the third movie, and he's all like, we will summon King Ghidorah.
I hope not, oh dear.
Sorry.
It's funny. I'm not getting mad. If I had to edit this video, I'd be getting mad.
Yell at them, go like, how dare you!
Anyways, let's see. Anything else, or should we wrap things up before this starts to that noise starts to take over the podcast?
I mean, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say, but if there's anything else you guys wanted to throw out there, I'm more than willing to comment on it.
So far, I got nothing. You guys? Dylan, David?
The fight with Adad was really cool. And I liked it.
That was it, yeah. Like the choreography there.
He's a very acrobatic motherfucker, that Adad.
Mm-hmm.
Classic sort of creepy character whose motives are unknown at the moment.
Do you think he was voiced by Steve Blum?
Maybe. He did sound familiar. Yeah.
Oh, now I'm going to have to watch the dub, at least to see if that's a thing.
You know what? Now that you've said that, I'm almost 99% sure. Like, he could summon Big O in the next episode, and I would not be surprised.
I'm going to definitely watch the dub now. Damn.
God damn it.
Let's specium fucking blast this motherfucker.
You should watch the dub because he's really good in it. The guy who plays Moroshi is really good.
You're right.
Seiji is really good.
Steve Blum does do the voice for Adad in Ultraman.
Fuck yeah. And also, apparently, he played some random background characters in a couple episodes prior.
I did remember hearing some voices around that sounded kind of like Adad as well, and I was like, wait.
That's the thing with Steve Blum. It's like he's always voicing everybody. I think Bill and I mentioned this, like in Batman, like Arkham Knight or Arkham City. It's like you can hear Steve Blum like everywhere when you're listening on Criminals.
He is everywhere.
But he's not one of those voice actors who really transforms his voice all that much. That's the weird thing.
No.
He plays a lot of roles.
Did you hear about the bat?
Yeah, see, he did Wolverine for a long time in like the mid 2000s, so I always think of him as Wolverine. Now he's spiked to me because I just watched all of Cowboy Bebop recently for the first time.
Oh, me too.
So Now he's just Spike to me. But for a long time, he was Wolverine. And he was also, he was in Call of Duty World at War as one of those fucking zombie soldiers that you play as. So I remember him like shouting one-liners as you're decapitating zombies. Pretty sure he was Tank Dempsey, by the way.
It's always Roger Smith to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he was Roger Smith in the Big O. See, I was introduced to both Roger Smith and Spike Spiegel back to back when Andre showed me those shows. So.
Oh yeah. And as for you, David.
About Steve Blum or
no,
the noise
in general,
in the background?
Anything else?
Let's review Steve Blum.
He should be Ultraman.
He should be Ultraman.
No. Don't play him. I mean, he should actually be Ultraman.
He should find a beta capsule to transform himself into Ultraman.
Yeah.
You can do it, Steve. We believe in you.
The new Ultraman should be H. John Benjamin.
Did you guys like the transformation effect?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
It was a bit Sailor Moony.
Yeah. I thought it was like the closest. It was as close as they could get to the original effect without making it look too much like all the other morphing effects that have come since. Like, I feel like it was a nice little middle ground between the two.
I do. One thing I forgot to say is that
it's weird though, because it makes it look like it's this like whole process, but then sometimes he just does it like in an instant.
That's every Power Rangers type thing, though. I know Ace actually has to put the suit on. Dan, we always just see in it when he's ready to go. Does he ever morph? Do we see that?
He does.
Maybe one time.
We hear
okay.
the sound, when he first appears, you hear the sound effect from the TV show.
Seiji too. He morphs in episode 11, right before him and.
I don't remember that, but I believe you.
Oh yeah,
right before him and Shinjiro have their little fight.
He does his Wonder Twin powers activate rings.
See, you know what's funny?
He slams his fists together, and then all of a sudden he's an Ultraman.
Yeah. See, this show has the MCU Iron Man problem where they can do fucking anything with those suits, and it's like the helmets can slide down automatically, but they can also take them off. That fucking shit drives me crazy. I don't know why. It's not a problem. It's like, well, why have both? You know,
it's a little bit kind of like Spawn. You know, it's like sometimes he can take off.
Yes.
Sometimes it just morphs off.
Too. See, but at least that suit's but the problem with Spawn is like it's a cloth suit sometimes, and sometimes the living thing. Like he had no idea what the fuck he wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's at least Spawn in general. It's nowhere near that bad.
What he wanted to do.
It's nowhere. It's nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Did Shinjiro know that Seiji had mechanical arms, or did he just think that Dan Moroboshi straight up cut off that kid's arm? Because I don't think
he knew at that point. Because
I don't think he was around when that was established, was he?
Oh yeah, maybe he wasn't watching the interrogation. Yeah, you might be right. It might have just been Ito and Dan watching.
Yeah.
Also, I know that he's like scared shitless of Dan, and for good reasons. But I was half expecting him in that episode to like jump in and be like, "Hey, man,
you cool, bro? Are you okay?"
Well, he was incapacitated at that point. I thought he was fucked up.
No, he was just watching.
The kid had done something.
He has a moment where he's like, "Hey, Moroboshi, maybe don't kill him," and Moriboshi's like, "Fuck that!" And he runs after him with the sword. Like,
one thing I didn't notice, I could never tell in the manga because it was black and white, but I noticed in the anime, Dan Moriboshi's glasses have a reddish tinge to them, much like the Ultra Eye transformation device that Dan puts on.
What? They do?
You're right.
Yeah, his glasses are red.
That's a new reference. I didn't pick up on that, but that's really cool. Does Ultraman Ace transform the same way in his series? Does he slam his fists together?
In later Ultraman like shows from like the 2000s when they bring back the actor back, where it's just the man, not the man and the woman, he puts his fists together.
Oh, okay.
In the original, they Hokuto and Ultraman Yuko?
Yeah.
Yuko, they do like a flip in the air.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how they transform into Ultraman Ace.
They flip into each other.
I gotta get Amazon Prime back. Anyone who's listening to this who doesn't know, if you've got Amazon Prime, they've got like all the old Ultramen on the Prime.
Not all of them. They're missing a lot now.
They've got quite a few.
They've got a lot of the later ones though. They don't have the early stuff.
Right.
I I saw some of the earlier ones on there the other day.
They don't have Ultraman 66. They don't have Ultra 7. They don't have the ones that I care about.
Oh, one thing I will say, I forgot to mention when talking about Rena, the pop idol girl, I'm very glad that she had, both in the English and Japanese dubs, I'm very glad that she ended up having a more natural sounding voice, and that she didn't have like a very annoying, high-pitched, bubbly voice that you would hear in a lot of Japanese anime.
I think part of the problem with her character as well, though, is that the idea of the kind of musician she is so detestable to me. You know, like I just didn't. Yeah. It's so awful. Like, you see her performing, and she has no musicians with her. It's just all electronic noise and the DJ's making.
That's what Japanese pop idols are. So, like, there's so little to latch onto with her. You know, like it's more, her and Shinjiro have no chemistry together. It's the classic like Mary Jane and Peter Parker in the original Spider-Man movie. Like they really don't have a lot of chemistry, but like it's just the traditional relationship they have to do. So luckily they don't go there, and they kick her ass all the way to America.
I thought that was like bizarrely, like
you're right. They didn't
bizarrely cathartic. Like it was like cathartic. It was like, oh, they're just gonna get rid of her. Like I thought we were gonna be stuck with this character.
You're right. They didn't have any chemistry at all. I never once thought they were gonna fuck. Now Seiji, on the other hand, I feel like
oh, totally.
There was some tension.
Hey, if you want to talk about tension, okay, there's Shinjiro and Dan Moriboshi, okay? You can't get more tension-filled than that.
Definitely not.
I bet you there's going to be some fanfic out there where Dan is like, I hate you
it's
because
I
love you.
Oh, it definitely happened already. There's that scene when they're in the locker room, and it's like, I thought at the time, I was like, oh no, this is the new, there was that one boy in Evangelion.
Oh yeah, Kawaru.
Just gay. Who was just gay. Like it was just so on the nose when I first watched Evangelion. I was like, really?
They definitely fucked.
No, I mean he and Shinji were like they liked each other. It was different in the because then they did that character in the third Rebuild movie, and he was a little different. And he was slightly less gay.
Did that disappoint you, Bill?
I got the feeling that they fucked.
No, but they did a weird thing where Shinji was kind of bad at the end, and then he wasn't. You guys remember that? Because he was like, "Hey, yeah," because Shinji like destroys that thing. He's
like, "I want to help make the world a better place." Okay, Shinji, I'll do it too. Wait, we did the wrong thing. We made the world a worse place.
And Shinji's like, "No, let's do it!" Ah! And I was like,
fuck it, I got nothing to live for. But what about me, Shinji? Live for me, damn it.
I'm not a big Evangelion Rebuild 3 guy.
I am, for the most part.
It's not bad. I really like the end of Evangelion, though. So the Rebuild movies are just like kind of nothing to me. Like you don't get much fucking more psychedelic than the end of Event. Like that shit's awful. I also don't love the animation either. I never liked the redesign they did for Ava Unit. For the Shinji's is 1 or is it 3?
It's 1.
It's 1. Because really? Zero.
You don't like the extra.
I know. No, I don't. I prefer the original. I really do. I never liked the redesign.
For me, I like the redesign because it just breaks up all that purple.
I think when I see it drawn in 2D, like I think it's because like you've got the CGI lights on it, and just
the glow in the dark stuff.
Yeah, I do not like that. When I see it drawn and like when they did that Godzilla, the Shin Godzilla versus Evangelion art, I used to like that stuff. There's that really cool one of like the Ava Unit 3 like impaling Shin on the Spear of Consciousness, and I'm like, that's fucking awesome. I want that as a poster. It's fucking cool.
Well, anyways, Evangelion is the conversation for another day.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know we should definitely wrap it.
It's okay.
There is a whole lot of very interesting Rule 34 revolving around Ultraman out there. That's what I've come to.
Of course you jump there. It's always your move. It's your fucking... You always got to know. You can't help yourself. I definitely didn't think that this was perfect, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I watched it in basically one sitting, in one... like 7.5 hour block.
So would you consider this better or worse than Ghostbusters 2?
Oh, this is it's better than Ghostbusters 2 for sure, without a doubt.
Right. That's your personal rating?
But not as good as the Bobby Brown song.
No, that's my problem. It's definitely not as good as On Our Own, but it's definitely better than the movie Ghostbusters. It's not perfect. It lacks some of the character stuff that it like sort of implies it's going to get to, and it just doesn't. And that's probably the most disappointing thing about it. But the action and the science fiction elements and the themes are all there. So
the core story is like works really, really well, I think.
Yeah, and you definitely don't have to know Ultraman to get into this. In fact, I feel like it's kind of better if you don't.
Exactly.
Because if you're a big fan of 66, you go into this and you're like, none of the aliens matter. You know, like they're all vaguely referenced. You know, but it's like nobody really comes back, so to speak.
Yeah.
Outside of the cast. So I don't really feel like that's. I feel like it's if you're looking for a more violent, like American sci-fi type show, this is it, man. It's got the blood, and it's got the cursing, and it's got the dark themes, but it's also fun.
Mm-hmm. I think you took the words right out of my mouth, man. And I would say I have several friends who are not into Ultraman, who don't normally watch tokusatsu programs, but they're definitely anime fans, and they really dug the hell out of this Ultraman anime. So I feel like this is definitely a very good, not a jumping on point for Ultraman to get into the Ultraman franchise, but I think it's a very nice attempt at translating the essence of Ultraman, you know, superpowered beings with the power of light and shit, and having them fight aliens and monsters, and putting it in a new format that more people might be interested in. You know, people like Power Rangers, people like Kamen Rider, people like Iron Man, people like teenage superhero dramas, people like, you know, secret agency stuff. You know, Spider-Man's always been a popular teenage superhero character.
Oh yeah, no, this is this is like the Smallville Spider-Man formula
Smallville,
done with Ultraman.
Spider-Man,
I think that was the idea.
Danny Phantom, if anyone remembers that.
Let's not forget my boy Static Shock.
Shock, yeah. So teenage superheroes have always, you know, been popular, I guess, ever since Spider-Man sort of kind of broke new ground with that. Although perhaps Japan has maybe did the whole teenage hero much longer. But yeah, I feel like this is something that anyone can enjoy. And if you can get past the animation, which I believe you can, since this was, you know, one of the better CGI animations in my opinion, I think you'll definitely enjoy this. So I would give this a solid 4 out of 5. Dylan or David, final thoughts?
Wait, Bill didn't give his rating?
He did. He
I said it was better than Ghostbusters 2, but not better than the song.
That's his personal rating.
Oh, but real quick, I'm sorry. This was one of the criticisms I meant to mention earlier. I felt like the soundtrack was really repetitive. And I mentioned this before the recording. I felt like the original Ultraman theme should have been in there in some capacity.
Okay, I can kind of see that. But I think like in terms of the repetitive score, I think that's just like an anime thing.
No, sure, but there was one action theme they kept using, and it was really generic too. And I just got really sick of it. But then the end credits, the end credits little guitar riff was really nice.
True.
That's the only bit of music that I remember, which is perhaps a problem with the series. The music doesn't seem to be very memorable because I can't recall any of it except for that ending theme.
Here's a weird thing.
You watched it more recently than I did, so.
Here's a weird thing. There's no intro for this series.
Yeah.
I want to bring that up.
That's true. It's like the Dark Knight of anime.
In more ways than one.
And for Dylan and David, your final thoughts?
I give it 4 human-shaped blood splatters on a wall out of 5.
With a very bizarre, like, smear shape for the hole in the mouth, for the eyeballs in the mouth.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's not supposed to work. That's not how the Force works, damn it.
It reminds me of that weapon that the Decepticons use in Bumblebee, where they keep popping people like water balloons.
Mm-hmm. And for you, David?
I give it a solid 3 out of 4.
Okay.
It's not perfect, but it's getting there.
Yeah, it's improving as it goes along, I think.
Yeah, I think you could say that for I guess this is the first season?
Hopefully this will be the first of a season and not the only season.
I personally felt that it started off very slow and gradually started building up because I kept on binging the show. After the second episode, I was like, I'll probably come back to it. But I got curious, and I kept on watching it, and then I got more intrigued by it. So I like that it's doing that it's gradually getting better and progressing its story and characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I might be in the minority with this, but there's one track from the soundtrack that's pretty memorable to me, and that's Ultra 7's battle theme that appears twice.
How does it go?
When he first shows up and kills that alien,
Yeah,
I guess would be the first time.
Yeah, when he kills Metron and when he has that battle with Ace.
How does it go, Dave?
I sort of vaguely remember a unique piece of music there. Okay, sure. I'll grant you that.
I cannot ironically I cannot recall how it goes, but I just remember listening to it. I'm like, this is a pretty badass theme for a badass character.
Sounds super memorable.
Well, it's just like the whole thing wasn't. It just they needed more music. I think was really the whole thing. Like I just think that's it. They just needed more music. Was really the only issue. Like what they had was fine. It just they kept using it again and again.
Well,
wait. So you don't have that issue with some of the Godzilla films?
No. Sometimes it depends on if it's good or not. Sometimes they can overuse the Ifukube stuff to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. Like some of the Destroyer monster cues in Godzilla vs. Gigan don't really work.
I like it better when the individual movie has its own kind of musical themes going on, and then they only occasionally pepper in the Ifukube stuff for like big moments.
Oh, yeah, that's why I like the score for Biollante. Yeah, Biolante's score is really good, even though Ifukube doesn't think so, or didn't think so.
He's like, move out the way, I'm coming back out of retirement.
But no, I really think that one nailed it. GMK as well. GMK is probably one of the better examples, actually.
So,
but anyway, we're talking about Godzilla now.
Right. So, looks like we are pretty much about finished. We all enjoyed it, and we definitely recommend the series. What?
I meant to say one last thing.
What?
Was that a jab at Bill on how he sounds like?
No, a jab at you.
That was you.
Fuck.
Me? What?
There we go. See?
I do not hear it. I do not see the parallels, or hear the parallels in this case.
Pest.
I do. Was that me or Bill again?
God,
you're gonna be fucking Ace, and I'm gonna be fucking Ultra 7 in a minute. I'm gonna slice your arm clean.
He's gonna cut off your arm, and then nearly decapitate.
No one's gonna show up to stop me either. Like it's not gonna be the same. It's gonna be very different at the end. It's gonna be a murder.
I'll be
Ultra 7. He's my favorite character.
I'll be standing in the background, but I'll have more of a Willy Wonka thing going on. I'll be like, no, please don't stop.
No, I was gonna say that if you're trying to get into Ultraman, this is a pretty good one. And
this is how I started.
Yeah,
it was just a manga.
Exhibit A.
Version.
And it sounds weird to say that, given again no giants in it yet. But yeah, there's a level of storytelling here that isn't on display really in most Ultraman shows because they tend to be very episodic and formulaic, whereas this is one continuous story.
I forgot to mention, so I did have a theory as to why they replaced Red King with Black King, and it's possible they did that.
Oh yeah, we never talked about that.
I think, so in the anime, in the manga, Jack kind of coerced, is that the word? Coerced Shinjiro to fight Red King for him, whereas in the anime, Black King is just running out on the rampage and just so happens to get into a brawl with Shinjiro. So I think that was done because in the manga, Red King doesn't die, and I think he comes back later with a human disguise. Humorously, Red King in the manga, Red King comes back with a human disguise, and he's like a little 5-year-old child. Funny enough, and it's possible that they changed him into Black King just so they can turn him into a throwaway character for Shinjiro to kill. That way they can have at least more than one kaiju kill in this whole series, because it's only him and the one with the big shoulders.
So you're saying that they're saving Red King? for later, maybe?
That's what I'm thinking. That's my theory.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. As opposed to having him fill that like throwaway reference role that he occupied in the manga.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, replace him with like a more expendable character.
But overall, this like...
Are all the Ultramen who are being revealed in this show, are they being revealed in the same order that they were in the original continuity? So,
yes.
For example, Ultra 7 is the second one to show up, just like he was the second series. Was Ace the third?
No, Jack. Don't forget Jack.
Oh, right. They did introduce Jack. He just doesn't have a suit yet.
Right. He will get a suit.
Yeah, he's the one I'm like the most excited to see like do things.
He's got a Jack suit.
Yeah, I've seen the images of it. It's pretty huge. It's like the Hulkbuster armor.
Yeah.
Of Ultra
he seems to be American, or at least like the American branch of the science or something, because like he flies off with some Spec Ops guys at the end.
Oh yeah, I thought those were like the galactic people.
Possibly. Yeah, I thought he was going. I think even though he's from Earth, I think he's actually an alien, and I think when he said something about going home, I think he was talking about going to his home planet.
Gotcha.
Maybe. I don't know though.
But it wasn't a spaceship. That's why I thought, oh well, he's just going back to like America, because it was just like a VTOL. So
maybe
it looked like an American military aircraft we have nowadays. So that's why I thought that.
We can either find out now or wait an entire year for season 2.
Yeah, I know. I probably will get caught up on the manga sooner rather than later myself when I'm inclined. And that's the thing about the show. I think we can criticize a bunch of things about it. You know, a lot of things that we didn't even say. Mm-hmm. But it does its job. It gets you interested in Ultraman again.
Totally.
At the end of the day,
that was the job, and it succeeded. 100% succeeded. I have never really been a big Ultraman person, and right now I'm going through 66 because I watched this and I was like, I gotta find out things about Ultraman.
Excellent. All right, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on our review of Season 1, or at least all of that we have so far, of the Ultraman 2019 anime. I have been Andres Perez, a.k.a. KaijuNoir.
I'm Borzard, and give praise to the egg.
I am Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubar.
I'm Super Damn 64.
And until next time, everybody, take care.
Shwat! Oh, I was going to do it, too. I was like, I bet he's going to do it, but I'm going to do it at the same time.